I'll push back on your thing about not mediating a lot. I think a mediation is one of the best times to get to know your client in a way that is so much harder in so many other ways. Like, I think a lot of people recommend going to their house, and that's great. I think you should. But the mediation is great because there's dead air. It's just the two of you in a room waiting an hour in between offers from the defense. And so, like, one of those things I really love about a mediation is sometimes you just get to know somebody better, and it makes the personal injury case just more personal.
This is Courtroom Stories and Tactics by RVA Trial Lawyers, hosted by Sharif Gray and Niall Abuzaki.
All right, we're back, and today we've got Damon Hudson from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Damon, as you know, Santa Fe and New Mexico has a special place in my heart. I clerked for a federal judge in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a few years ago now. I also actually, before I started working for that judge, I spent a handful of months actually working for a judge in the federal district courthouse in Santa Fe. And so for our listeners, Damon has no reason ever to complain living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Amazing weather, amazing food, really, really, really good food. In fact, that's probably the thing I miss most about New Mexico. And then also a lot of great trial lawyers. Damon, remind me, but I think you and I first met in person for the first time at Trial Lawyers University a few years ago, and we've stayed in touch since then. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's 2 years ago now, and we connected first on LinkedIn, and that's where then we met there and just kind of got to chatting. And then so it's been kind of crazy, about 2 years ago that we met. So great to see all your successes. Well,
thank you. As everyone knows, we're just making it up as we go. So it's make it till you make it. So I think I'm convinced, Damon, that once we get to, 67 years old, we just eventually just accept that we're never going to figure it out and we give up. So, but anyways, before I start going down that rabbit hole, take a minute, introduce yourself.
So we'll come back to that. Never going to figure it out. So Damon Hudson, I'm originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I kind of stumbled into PI after a year doing medical malpractice defense. I hated it and needed to get out, and ended up in plaintiff's work and had never considered it, and went through a couple firms and learned a lot, but at a certain point realized that I needed to go out and do my own thing and have my own firm, something I never imagined. And so I've been, I'm a couple weeks away from a year in business, which statistically speaking I hear is a big achievement because most businesses fail within the first year. So I'm feeling pretty excited. But I do personal injury, car accidents, slip and falls, truck accidents, dog bites, all of the variety here out in New Mexico. A majority of my cases are in Albuquerque, but I'm happy to take cases and try and expand more in Santa Fe. And I think this year the goal really is just to help more people. I think you kind of see what other people are doing, and the thing I like about what we get to do is at the end of the day, I get to help people solve problems. I get to use my problem solving brain, but more importantly, I get to help people and find a solution that I know a lot of the times it would be hard to get without me. So I'm very thankful to get to do what I get to do, and then to get to blab to you about it today.
No, absolutely. Well, let's get into it then. Talking about helping people. I want to get into a case that you had not too long ago where a lady just couldn't find an attorney to help her. And then ultimately she found you and you gave her a shot and were able to get a result for her. Tell us about that case.
So the case was a friend had been referred this case by a friend. We'd gotten breakfast and he'd been doing his firm for a bit. And this woman had a decent claim. She had been at a store and they had a pipe sticking out of the ground, and she fell on it and couldn't get anybody to represent her. Couldn't get anybody. I think slip and falls, I think people are generally pretty hesitant on because you're going to have to file in most situations. And it seems like a lot of time people say, well, prove it. And so she got a pretty serious injury. And so she decided, well, she filed it herself. And so by the time she'd contacted me, the statute of limitations had run. But 2 days before, she had filed it in state court, which I was like, I know in some situations a pro se client, someone doing that can be a concern, right? There's the situation where somebody files a 200-page complaint and asks for $1 billion. But the woman put down a number that I thought was reasonable. She frankly had a one page and just said this was wrong and kind of just put forward her complaint. Then the case gets removed to federal court and she went and met with the other side. And I was like, wow, this I thought that was ballsy. And so she doesn't call me until after that meeting. She apparently, I went to the meeting and she left. She said, if we can't get this done today, then I'll go get somebody to help me. And so she worked and couldn't find somebody. The friend couldn't help her. She had been waiting to hear back from folks. And it just like, it's like one of those things, you get one of those calls, and it's like a weird thing about doing this work that somebody calls and something about it just feels right. Like, I know I can do something for the person, but you also get the like personal connection. Like I think it's the personal injury side of things. And so she calls, we get her signed up. And I remember, like, I think the thing that stuck with me is like one of our early calls, the company had offered her $750, like right before the statute, like good luck, like one of those as a courtesy or whatever. And so she doesn't take it. But when she called me, she said, and the thing that like I think stuck with me, she goes, "Damon, I'm worried they're going to make a fool of me." And like that was an early thing in my head. I'm like, there's not a chance. We're going to show them that you're like, first off, I think they're a little nervous about you because you filed a pro se. Like, I don't think somebody would realize that that's ballsy in of itself. For me, that's like the bravest thing I've seen a client do, and that most people wait on us. And so to go out and do that.
It's funny, I can actually relate. We have a client now who set for trial. He was also pro se. He filed his case, and he even like went and did a motion to dismiss, motions practice, all
wow.
types of stuff. And now we're representing him because their insurance company wouldn't take him seriously. But I agree with you on a number of things. One, whenever you hear pro se, I think our first reaction is, oops, I don't know if we want to touch this, right? For a number of reasons. But then two, like it is ballsy, and it's something to admire if someone's really like, they really believe in what happened to them was wrong, and they're willing to go, if no lawyer's willing to help them, and actually pursue that case on their own. So let's get in a little bit more of the story then. So you take on this case. She's already had that initial offer of the $750, which clearly she rejects. What do you do?
So first off, I get, like, in any case like this, I want to see if there's video. So I call up the other side and say, we're going to send discovery. Will you show me the video? And one of the early things that I think a benefit to her of, like, again, it's like her filing and it being right before the statute actually seemed to cause some benefits. So they had been coordinating with her for a long time. I have this correspondence. I later get this correspondence where the adjuster says, I watched the video. And they say, they effectively kind of poo-poo the statement, or like something to the effect of, her injuries can't be that bad. And I don't see that until later, but I asked to sit down with the attorney and say, can we watch the video? And so we sit down and we're sitting there watching it. It's just an empty parking lot. And so I knew she fell at a shopping corral, like those metal things. So we're looking at the time, and I know about the time it happened, and I go, so where is it? And the other attorney's like, and he realizes in real time that they don't have the video footage. He says, this is all the video footage we have. And so we, like, at that point, we're in federal court, so I'm amending the next day to add claims for spoliation, because they, like in New Mexico, it can be an independent tort. And so we're adding claims for spoliation. I think she had put punitives in, and we had some little fight on it. But I think the first thing, I think the hard thing that I kind of struggle with in this is that, like, to take them seriously. And so in my mind, there's like a level of just this level of bravery, or like in some contexts you just kind of feel, and this woman, I knew by filing it herself, and like your client probably too, like something about it is that they were not willing to accept, like any plaintiff has to be brave, but like there was like a dogged nature to her, like not accepting what happened to her. And like that was the thing for me that was like an inspiration. Like I need to even go harder, because like this client is like inspiring to me on how hard she's trying. And so we add those claims. They asked for an early mediation, which is always like, let's see what happens. And so like I think that's a goal to settle cheap, or like they had told me, like, we'll give you an early offer, and they gave me an early offer of like $1,500, which is like, oh, thank you so much for validating this like serious injury that led to like a replacement of an area, not like a limb, but like a replacement, and it required surgery and created long-term issues. So sure, I'll take a mediation chance. We'll talk about it. And I think the thing that's always interesting is I feel like people feel more pressure at a mediation. Clients do at a mediation than a deposition, which is always in my mind should be the exact opposite. Like, we don't have to settle today, whereas at a deposition, like, you're under oath. But so they want to do a mediation before deposition. And we have some information, and some other stuff came out later, right? Like, every case isn't perfect. But we go to the mediation, and we banter back and forth for a while. And the judge, like, at one point we get to a number, and the judge says, ma'am, you need to settle this case at this number. You will not get any more money than this. Which I thought was a pretty broad statement. I thought that was a big jump to, and so in my mind, well, it's a mediation, it's early. If that's the case, then let's walk away and see if we can shake the trees a little bit and see if we can get a little bit more. I think the hard part is at the same point, as much as, and I know you talk a lot about you have a real trial first position. The hard part is some people don't.
We actually rarely mediate. We've been burned so many times that in rare exception will we even agree to mediate for the same reasons you mentioned about the pressure.
But I told the client, I advise a lot of times, I say, we'll go to this. We're not going to settle. Like, even if we get to a number you want, we're not going to settle. And I think, again, there are wrinkles to everything and different reasons to do things and different motivations I think for some clients, as brave as bringing a lawsuit is, a trial and being judged by your peers is not by the judge, being judged by is a pretty scary thing. And there are reasons that might be a good or a bad, depending on the circumstances. But I said, okay, the plan is I told her, let's walk. We're not going to go to this. And I expected we'd walk away. No, I thought we'd get to a better, right? Sometimes it's always hard in a mediation when you get to a number that makes it hard to walk away, or a number that okay, well, it pays your bills, puts a certain amount in your pocket. It never is going to justify it, but it gets as close to it as a number is. And it's like when an attorney's always like, well, what would your client do if we offered this amount? It's like, well, why don't you make it hard for me to make that decision and offer that amount if you're gonna ask that kind of thing? But so we got to that number that I didn't think was enough, and the judge told my client that, which I was like, wow, that seemed pretty darn out of line. And we walked. And I remember her, there was a level of anxiety, just an insane level of anxiety in that time. And it builds that pressure. And at the same point, we wouldn't have been in trial for another year after that. And so the thing about it, though, and it's always I think it's an easy secret that the defense knows, is that sometimes walking away shows you're willing to take further steps, right? We had other arrows in our quiver. We had other things we could do. And so we walked.
I imagine the spoliation issue is a big deal, right? Because the video's gone, and in some ways that can be incredibly helpful.
Yes, I think you get an inference. I think that right in the context, you would get a negative inference of losing it. And I think the hard part that sometimes spoliation is, I think spoliation sounds scarier to a defendant client than it might to a lawyer, because there's I think at least in New Mexico, and in this case, there's the difference between negligent spoliation and intentional. And so sure, I think if we had a smoking gun and somebody said, I deleted this to screw that person over, then great. That's a damage to the multiplier. But it was probably just some dipstick who didn't do, they thought, well, this person's never going to do anything, and the statute expired and they hadn't been served in time, and they let it go. It is my assumption. So that's a yes and no. I think that it's a good thing, right? It's always one of those things, and you think about it too, is do I throw 100 claims against the wall, or do I throw 5 really good ones? And so yes and no. I don't know. I think it again, it depends on the case, and it's hard, even if it were intentional with any big store chain or anything like that, it's really hard to prove, even if there were 3 people in a back room cackling to themselves, cheersing whiskey and deleting this video. How are you going to prove that?
I agree. That said, right, I have seen it's a leverage point. For example, it's one thing to say it was a trip and fall. It's another thing to say, oh yeah, they had the video, but for some reason we no longer have it now, right? And so you can't, jury who's been asked to ultimately solve this problem and come to a just result, the one party has deprived you from the information that would have helped you to do that, right? Whether you get the instruction or not, I think there's, from a persuasion standpoint, it can be helpful. And it's certainly, I imagine when talking about resolution, right, this is something that had to come up, at least in behind closed doors for the defense.
And it stinks. It doesn't, even, right, sure, we talk about the legal side of it, but a jury's not going to give, I don't know if a jury cares that much about intentional versus negligent, where I say, hey, they had video, they admitted to having video, and whose benefit is it to not have the video? It's pretty clear to, I think people normally would be hey, we watched the video and you don't have it anymore. Why would you delete it? And I think, exactly. So again, I think it's
right. And I think that kind of cloud can be very favorable if used correctly.
which is like one of those things about like somebody filing pro se. Like it's honestly totally possible, like in this context, that this company auto deletes videos after 3 years that are preserved. And so this video would have been saved had I been initiated early on, right? Like it's one of those things about like, if a different attorney filed the same case a year before, what does that change about the context? And I always wonder, like, are you always ask yourself, are you doing a good job for this client in a way that anybody else could do, no one else could do better? And it's like one of those things, like, yeah, I think here I did that. But it's also, you wonder, does somebody do a great job for this person a year in advance, and because this claim doesn't exist, because they didn't mess up, does that change the kind of context? And it's always like a thought exercise of like hindsight, looking back, could I have done better, and what circumstances benefited this person? And so this was definitely one of those in this case, like that her deciding to do it herself and waiting until like after treatment and whatnot benefited her.
Yeah. No, that's wild. Well, so I know the case ultimately resolves, but I don't want to spoil the story. So tell us, you guys.
Well, other than the spoiler.
There we go. Right. I mean, it resolved in some way. Well, it could be resolved in a good way. It could resolve in a bad way. Right. You never know. Everything comes to some sort of resolution. That's me trying to save myself.
No. And let me kind of do an aside then to get there. So like I had a client recently mention and I think about this example all the time, and they talked about how, and this client is older, and they referenced this old cartoon, and I can't frankly remember the cartoon, but this character has a black cloud hanging over them. And this person is well enough versed in litigation, and they know a lot of lawyers, and they talked about how people in litigation have a black cloud hanging over them, and it belongs to one person. Like lawyers can come and go. Lawyers change out on cases. Their family members change out, but this black cloud hangs over that person. And so like in my mind, right, I always think about like, okay, what can I do to communicate with them as well as possible for that black cloud? And so in my mind, right, like this person, I told them this, I think the mediation was on a Friday. I told them, I was like, this is going to be sitting in your head, and you need to do whatever you can do to not let this chew at you, because there's nothing that's going to happen now. Like my assumption was nothing would happen. Like I honestly was like, okay, well, we'll keep, like, I asked her some depositions. That like that afternoon or I set the auto reply to go out on Monday at 8 a.m. Like I was ready to take next steps. And so like the benefit of like, I think circumstances of the case, of the injury, of what happened, the spoliation, all of that, what happens is by middle of that next week, I get a call from their attorney doubling the offer. And it's still not fully there, but I think, again, it's like one of those numbers you start to go, it makes it harder to say no, right? Like it's a number, I would prefer, like in some situations where a client doesn't want to go forward, or if they do or don't, I don't necessarily, the worst case scenario is not a number that makes it hard for them to say, like, if they offer $5,000, it is super easy to say, screw yourselves, we're going to keep going. Like sometimes they can make it really, the defense can make it really easy for your client to be on board with next steps. And so they do that. I talk to the client, I say, we're still not there. And so this woman walked out and waited a week, and the amount we got tripled. And so like, it's bravery. It's like one of those things I'm like, okay, the trust for me of like a judge telling you need to settle this case for your, and of course the judge is wrong, but like it must be really hard, because you're like, I always think too, like somebody's navigating this process and they're going through this process, and they'll hopefully never need a PI attorney again, but they're navigating this process, and I've got to do everything to build the trust early on to show them, hey, like, and one of the things I remember telling this client, and let me kind of bring it full circle, is I remember telling them, we got to this number, and I think they were still hesitant. They were still like, well, should I go to trial? They were thinking about all those things. And I think other wrinkles came in, and I think the thing I said was, remember where you were when they offered you $750, and remember where you are now when they're offering a lot more than that. Is this what a fool looks like? And so I know that was like a thing that, and so for me, I think we got to a number that I struggle to say the word justified, but I think that put this person in a as close as money can to fixing an injury in the context of it. I think a number that would have been hard to get to beat at trial, right? I could think of the things, and then also in their hands now, as opposed to 2 years down the road after appeals and what have you, if not more time. So I think the thing, I was grateful for the trust, right? That means the world, and you have to earn that. But also for them, even when they trust you, hey, let's walk away, and like a mediation feels like we have to settle today. Plenty of time walking away is just as good for a client, because they know what cards the other side is playing. They know they're going to offer $0 and flip you the bird. Okay, then we'll keep walking. But it was one of those things that was like gratifying in the sense of like, this person came to me brave. This person came to me worried they were at the same point, though, handing it off where they were going to get screwed. And so the thing for me that's kind of really special is, and I never encourage a client to give me a gift, but at the end of the case, she knew I had a young daughter and ended up giving us, I gave her her check. We met, we had this we met and went and chatted, and we still chat periodically. And the client brought a dog, a stuffed animal. And so now one of my daughter's favorite stuffed animals is this one the client and the daughter will never be connected, but it was like a really sweet gesture. And for me, always seeing my daughter really likes this stuffed animal, fills me with pride in the sense of where else would you have gotten this had we not had this? So it was one of those things that again, that human side of what we do just pulls in so heavily. And so again, you have this connection to your family in a way, and you talk to this person about your life. I mean, in a mediation, I think a mediation. So I'll push back on your thing about not mediating a lot. I think a mediation is one of the best times to get to know your client in a way that is so much harder in so many other ways. I think a lot of people recommend going to their house, and that's great. I think you should. But the mediation is great because there's dead air. If I go to your house and I chat with you, and I learn a ton. I learn about how you function in the world, how you walk. But I love a mediation at a point in a case because people are trying to fill the air, and that is some of the time that people say things they shouldn't. They people will word vomit, and so it's just the two of you in a room waiting an hour in between offers from the defense. And so in this case, again, I think we just built you build the relationship over time, but it was one of those things I really love about a mediation is sometimes you just get to know somebody better, and it makes the personal injury case just more personal.
That's the cool thing about what we do, our work, right? Yeah. We're representing people, we're representing a human being, and we're hoping, at least we're trying to make a difference for that person. And you said it very well, right? We can't go back in time and make as if this never happened, but we can try and get the next best thing, which is compensation that recognizes, or at least attempts to recognize what was taken from that injury, how it impacted their health, their quality of life. And I can relate also in the sense of with criminal defense work. I mean, I loved when I did criminal defense work in the Army, just just loved it. And it was largely because of those stories of getting invited to the retirement ceremony, that the guy wouldn't have retired absent our representation of him, getting the handshake, the hug afterwards, right? I mean, that's the stuff that really, really matters. And it's the stuff that you can't replace with money, and it's the stuff that you just don't forget, right? And I feel lucky every day that we get to do this type of work. I think for whatever reason, people still talk about the ambulance chasers and the billboards and all that stuff. And I'm like, keep doing it because I'm loving it. So it's because if they don't want to come do this type of work, then fine. There's more opportunity for us to help more people and to have a great time doing it. But that's an awesome case, especially within your first year on your own to be able to see value in a case that probably every other lawyer she spoke with didn't see the value. To take a pro se complaint that's removed to federal court and to have a serious offer ultimately made and accepted is awesome. So it's really, that's awesome work. Before we got on this call, you were telling me how your business is just growing and growing, and you're going to be welcoming another team member here on Monday. So you're doing it all, man. It's really exciting to see. And I'm still very much jealous of the sopapillas and the red and green chili and all that stuff, the huevos rancheros and all that stuff you guys have out there.
I'll have a breakfast burrito for you this weekend. How about that?
That would do me a ton of good, right? In fact, I'm actually looking for an excuse to come back to New Mexico for a training or something. So if you hear of anything, let me know. New Mexico,
I will.
Admittedly, I did not have the highest expectations when we were coming, because a big reason why I wanted to go to New Mexico to Clark was for all the criminal law issues. So there's a lot of crime, unfortunately. And that happens to be because of and correct me if I'm wrong, but because of the border state, there is a lot of drug trafficking. And also with the numerous Indian reservations, at least in the federal courts, they get original jurisdiction over felony offenses on Indian territory. And so, I was very busy doing criminal work, and that was still very much in my days of I'm a criminal lawyer. And so our expectations of New Mexico weren't terribly high, but man, we loved it. It is an awesome place. Great people, weather, and of course, I'm sure I'll mention the sopapillas and the chili another 7 times before we're done with this podcast. But
I think the thing I struggle with is like the Breaking Bad mentality of like, sure, like there are challenges and like, is it perfect? No, but I think it's one of those things about like it's always interesting when I meet, like you meet a client and like they remind me of my grandpa because they like are this similar way. And there's this very New Mexican nature about this, like wanting to give their best, but still being kind. It would be hard to say that like when I go to Albuquerque, areas are worse, right? Like fentanyl and has done terrible things to the state, but it's also like one of the most welcoming places in the sense of, I think a lot of people that aren't from here are pretty comfortable being here and being adopted as somebody who is. And I think it's a comfortable place that they can find their own way. And it's still, in some respects, the wild, wild west too. But yeah, I think that there's definitely those issues. I'll be at the same point, Sharif. I have maybe 1 or 2 criminal defense cases in my experience. I've been mostly civil, and I plan to keep it that way in the long term. But yeah, I hear you.
criminal defense is fun, man. I mean, it's like the movies, but in some cases, right? But PI is great too. Well, I got a question for you. As you're building the business, right, and wanting to provide that personal, that one-on-one attention so you can get those results like you had in that case we talked about earlier, but at the same time thinking, man, well, I mean, I need to build a business. Now we need to start talking about KPIs, caseloads, marketing efforts, all that. How do you balance that, right? Because you've got on one end, you're like, I just want to make sure I'm taking care of the client, that they have my cell number, right? That they can reach out to me and I'm available to them. Yet on the other side, I've got to support my family. I've got to support the people who are working with me and grow a business. And that means to some degree trying to get some volume, right? How has that been? And how have you managed to, I guess, do both in some respects? And I recognize there's always challenges.
I mean, so it's like as a business owner, like running a law firm, there's 2 perspectives. I think it's that we have too many cases, or we don't have enough cases, and the firm is going to fail really soon. I don't think there's an amount where like, wow, that is the exact right amount of cases. We don't need any more. Like, I don't think that exists. That's the thing I like for sure have learned in my first year. How do I balance it, man? I don't know. I try a lot of different things. Some marketing efforts have been better than others, and the benefit of starting off is that I think I started at 20 cases. And then I ended the year in the 70s. I mean, some of those have settled, but like, so it's in my head, it's a proof point for me of like, okay, can you get cases? Well, clearly I did in the first year. Now it's the second year, but then now it's like, okay, I need to add staff. Like to some degree, I can't be everywhere. And so it's giving them the leeway to communicate with clients. I think the most important thing for me in any regard is that clients either feel communicated with, or if they contact us, like the thing that would kill me is a Google review that said like, bad Google review, whatever, but that Damon and his staff didn't communicate and wouldn't answer my questions. Like that's the last thing I want to be known as is somebody who doesn't, like, I think I can sometimes over personalize a case. And so the last thing I would want is somebody to feel like if I didn't care, I would rather I don't take the case. And so if somebody felt that way and that they couldn't get their questions answered, like that would kill me. And so the way I balance it, Sharif, is that like some nights my kid goes to bed and I work for a couple more hours. Some mornings I have to work a little bit more. I'm adding another team member. Like it's been kind of exciting to see like just like a nugget of idea from years ago blossom into the thing that's supporting my family. Like I would have never dreamed of where I am. So it's like trying to soak it up. And I think at the same point, like some days are harder, some days are busier, but like if I can just keep helping more people, and if we can find ways to help people navigate these situations and stand up for them in a way that like that people don't recognize when they call us ambulance chasers, then I'm doing like good in the world. I think I'm doing something that I feel is like right, and that like I can, okay, hey, your case is I can't give you your check for the week because I got to resolve your liens, but I'm gonna get some more money. Like I'm fighting for you, and I'm like, I'm happy to do this work. And like as I told somebody recently, it's like not New Year, new me. It's New Year, same me. I'm still the same dude, I guess, who's gonna be arguing with insurance companies. I'm the same dude. It's gonna be like so. I like the confrontation we get to have, and so like at the same point, the balance comes in that. I get to care for my family. I get to do all those things, and sometimes I have to maybe get up at 4 a.m. on a Saturday and get 2 hours of work in before the kid gets up. There's some balance to it, but I get I like what I do. I get to help people, and so I think it makes it a little easier to maybe some nights if I get 1 less hour of sleep to go, okay, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean the whole cliche about like what is it, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. I mean, I think there's real truth to that, as cliche and corny as it sounds. I mean, I feel similar. I love work. I mean, like which is, I mean, sounds crazy, right? That most people listening to this, well, if they're listening to this and they're a follower, then
if you're this much in,
I'm a lunatic, right? Like,
well, if you're this deep in, you probably feel that way too. Like, there's no way you're listening to this going, I don't know.
Yeah. But again, like, it's really cool to have work that you enjoy and you love, and you get to see the fruits of your labor. And I hope everyone is able to find that, be it in the law or in whatever profession, because I'm a big believer. And I mean, I've had my struggles. I still do, right? I'm 5'6". I'll never be 6 foot. No, I'm joking. But in all reality, though, like, I've had my ups and downs, and I'm sure I will continue to have my ups and downs like everyone else. But ultimately, I feel like if you double down on what you enjoy doing and really work at it to the point where you can provide value to other people, things tend to work itself out. I mean, my big defining moment sounds a little too dramatic, but leaving big law and going to be a prosecutor, I mean, the pay cut was massive, and the career pivot was significant, one that you just don't see that often, right? And I learned through that process, and I'm grateful for having learned it, that, like, just figure out what you want to do and then double down on it, get as good as you can on it, and be amazed at the opportunities that will open their doors. And then another thing, which I'd love to get your thoughts on, is, I mean, becoming a part of this community. And when I say that, I mean, there's multiple different communities. I mean, you've got your community in Santa Fe. We have ours in Richmond. There's a legal community. And then there's also something that I've really enjoyed about our work is just the national kind of personal injury trial lawyer community. And like you and I have both been to Trial Lawyers University, right? And to be a part of that, and to see people and to work with people who truly believe that a rising tide lifts all boats is something that's really, really cool. And I know my understanding, you've also done that on the business side as well. Is that right?
Like, gone to like business conference? Yeah.
Like great legal marketing.
Great legal marketing, yeah.
Ben Glass and all that. So, but yeah, so I imagine like having that camaraderie, it has been very impactful. It certainly has for me.
I've found, I think the thing I like, right, sure, you go to conferences and you hope that somebody has a case to refer your way. Like, sure, that's like a thing you think of. I want to learn, but one of my favorite things after a good conference is if I have a couple of text chains with new friends who I can ask stupid business questions about, who I can send some memes with, who I can have like somebody to go, like I went to a conference recently, and there were these guys who we just connected. We went out to eat every night. We had we went to a dinner where we all just cackled with laughter the entire time. It's like you make these quick friendships because you kind of see what these other folks are doing. I mean, in the same sense, like you and I, like connecting with people on LinkedIn, even, you just have some of this connection of somebody else to, like, you build enough of a relationship that you like I can ask a couple questions. Like, I'm only on this podcast because we met in person, and I think only met in person or talked because I had seen you on LinkedIn before. And so I go for those connections, but like, I think makes the world a little smaller, man. But I'm happy to have more friends. There's not a lot of bad to having more friends. I don't think, even if we are, even if you're out on the East Coast. And so, yeah, I try to. I'm trying to figure.
We're not too bad. You don't want any friends north of Virginia, though. They're all evil.
I spent a winter in northern New York, so it wasn't the best winter of my life. So I would say in that area was hard for me, but otherwise, yeah. But I think you have those connections, man. Like, you have to tell me later, we can chat about the conferences you're going to this year. Otherwise, you're gonna have to start charging people for Dan and Ben and Brian for ads on this podcast if we're gonna keep talking about their conference.
We had our own.
At the same week, I know. I had already bought the ticket. I already bought the ticket to theirs.
We're doing it again. So hopefully we're not conflicted.
Okay.
It's going to be October 22 and 23. So it was awesome. Okay. Like, we had a great turnout. Awesome speakers. I thought it was a lot of value added. Granted, I'm certainly biased, but yeah, no, I mean, I love it. I mean, I'll tell you kind of where I plan to go, but I'm definitely going to do the Depositions or Trial by Satch Oliver. Okay. I was supposed to go last year, but I couldn't, so deferred to this year. I don't know when it's going to be. I think he's doing a handful of them. We're going to go to the Keith Mitnick Art Outsmarting or something like that in Florida in May. I'm going to go back to the Jerry Spence Ranch in August. I think I'm going to I'll do Trial Lawyers University in Huntington Beach in June. And I don't know. I'm sure there's a couple others. I have a problem with going to these things. I love them. I love them.
Yeah.
So they're always a good time, and you get to learn and meet other people and feel like you're part of that community that we were talking about.
It can make a small business not feel as like small, or like you have that connection,
Right.
right? Like, I mean, you're and you see other people, like sometimes it feels less isolating to know that someone else has like a similar problem, or to, hey, like how do they solve, like I think that especially like when you're running a business, it's like sometimes you're like, I'm batting my head against the wall about how this check processing works or whatever this issue is. And if you have somebody who's done it before, it's like, oh, let me text Sharif, and he's like, oh, we just use this vendor. It's like, oh, it solves me 10 hours bashing my head against the wall, where I can just have like, sometimes a connection is just a way to solve it. Like they can help you solve a problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. And I mean, I've benefited from that, reaching out many, many, many times, and I'm sure many times to come. Let's talk a little bit about AI.
Okay.
How are you guys implementing AI at your firm?
So I think that like you talk about like balancing it, sometimes it's finding ideas. Like sometimes it's like just I will drive. So I drive once a week to Albuquerque so it's I get an hour each way. So I turn on ChatGPT and kind of like use it as a way to like unscramble thoughts on a case. Like there'll be a case that like, you're in the shower and you think like, they're like, oh, what's an angle there? And so like I'll kind of rap about that and kind of like, that's just one of the simplest ones of like just me talking to ChatGPT about like my ideas without, of course, like getting anything privileged, but just like, okay, what's an angle on this case? And it's plenty of times just giving me ideas of like a claim I can add, a defendant you can add, finding some of that. I've done some work with like helping prepare initial demand letters, like the first draft sometimes. I mean, I think motions to compel, good faith letters, like using Claude or some of those little things allows me to save time to focus on the substance of a case, like preparing for a deposition, taking a deposition, doing things that help move a case along that are sometimes not just like the ticky-tacky discovery BS that defense really seems to enjoy. And so like I try and cut out some of if I'm doing something similar, like a good faith letter, if I'm doing that over and over again, well, AI can help me draft a similar one based on my complaints about a discovery set. And so I try and use it for little stuff like that. If I can use little bits to improve how I connect with, like how client data is saved. Like I have it now, my system sets it up. If it saves to my phone as soon as I enter a new client. So that like our phone system has a name automatically entered instead of it like just cutting off little steps like that. And so sometimes having it as a resource of ways to better help your folks and make them more efficient. And I don't think it needs to be, for sure, like I'm not trying to be the robot lawyer myself, but like, and it can't do everything, but it helps me to help more people. Like it really just does in so many contexts, and does some of the things that I think you talk about those 60 to 70-year-old, you get to that age that I think a lot of people aren't willing to take on to kind of help some cases move along and remove some friction.
And it allows you and your people to do the things that really matter, like like develop those connections with the client. It just allows for more of that. I mean, we're using AI fairly heavily. We don't view it as a replacement for people, right? We view it as kind of like what you're saying, as a tool that just helps us move faster, more comprehensively, and frankly, just sometimes even just more effectively. And like our business, unlike the defense side, like we don't bill the hours. So, I mean, for us, right, it's the faster we can get something done, the better we can get it done, the better it is for the client, the better it is for us. And we're able to continue to press the case forward because, contrary to popular belief, the defense doesn't just say, oh, here's a great offer, right? Like, yeah, I mean, but it's funny, but like, there's some people who think, and I understand where this comes from, like, oh, you file a suit, and then the defense is going to get scared, and they're going to be like, this
will be an easy one to settle. This case will settle right away.
It doesn't happen, like, at all.
No.
I mean, in fact, I think it has the opposite of effect. And correct me if your experience proves differently, but I find that when I file a lawsuit, any chance at resolving the case in the near future is gone, because now a defense lawyer is going to be hired. They've got to do their billables. They've got to do the depositions, issue the subpoenas, write up the reports to justify any sort of potential resolution. And so we have to move the ball forward, which is why it's so incredibly important, in our opinion, to have that trial mindset, because the only kind of point of leverage is what a jury will do, is what's going to happen in a courtroom. And the closer you can get to that, the better you are to get actual justice for the client, to actually get numbers that really mean something. Because absent that, like, you're just playing in their world. And when I say their world, I mean the insurance world.
And until the jury is AI itself, and we can click right at the start and know exactly what the outcome will be. But like at the counterpoint, the thing I really am unwilling to do that I've been like sold on a lot is like, you probably get all these emails like, Sharif, you need my VA AI agent to answer all your phone calls so you don't miss a single client. And in my head, I'm like, well, if my clients always talk, like I have a personal injury firm, and if the first person they talk to isn't a person, like, am I like immediately violating what I am? And so it's like the things I'm not trying to replace are that connection, that personal nature. Like I text clients very frequently, like and we have like a system that unless it's a rote message saying this is the thing we're sending you, please sign. I'm not trying to automate all that. Like that seems like the point where we're starting to lose what we do. And at the same point too, like on some of these softwares, the thing that kills me is that where people are adding these things to be more efficient. And they're like, this company was telling me, he's like, oh, you can get this AI agent. And you know what the best thing about it is? And I was like, what? And this guy goes, you can charge it back to the client. I'm like, well, wait, time out. So instead of me hiring staff to save money, I use AI to save money. But now that I use the AI to save money, I can then charge that to the client. Like, I think that's an ethical issue in of itself, but it starts to become, like AI has its own problems in 100 other areas. But like the last two things I want to do are get a client money faster, resolve it, save costs on my end, and then use that efficiency and charge them for it. And then at the same point, like also use AI to immediately disconnect myself from the personal side of things. Sure, if you want to run a big, there are ways, I guess, if you have a big enough shop that maybe that's the only thing you want to do, and it can be efficiencies, but I think it loses the thing that makes this work worthwhile.
Yeah. Again, we're using AI. We're using it
Sure.
very heavily, but I agree with you. I mean, AI intake is AI picking up the phone. I mean, maybe for after hours stuff, but like, I mean, if you don't want to talk to your clients, then why do you want to do this work, right? Like, you want clients, Like, I mean,
you're gonna see them at their worst. Like what? Like if you're in that mediation and you only talk to them, like you're not gonna know anything about them. Like it's like sometimes, like even like in the simplest thing, like somebody tells you their kid's name. And if you're like having to let me review the AI phone call to know your kid's name, again, it's like you're not in it for the right reasons. I think plenty of people can be successful in what we do if they're in it for the wrong reasons. I just don't know if that's a long-term sustainable outcome.
yeah. And I wonder if that is going to be a competitive advantage for you as you build your firm. Actually, I don't wonder. I expect it will be.
I hope.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
but in all seriousness, right? Like, I don't think people, and I could be completely off base here, but I don't think people develop the same affinity anymore with brands. And I think people crave authenticity. They want the human connection, especially in a world where everything is on a smartphone or one click away, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you want to be able to talk to your lawyer, and you want to be able to trust that your lawyer has your best interest in mind and actually cares. I mean, that's the secret ingredient to all of this. I recognize I'm preaching to the choir here, but if you care, no, I'm serious. Like if you just genuinely care, that can make up for so much. And when you step into a courtroom, that connection with your client and the jury sees it. It's just so incredibly important. And that's one of the main lessons I think I took away from the Jerry Spence stuff, is that we just have to be willing to kind of shed all the garbage and allow ourselves to be seen. And if we are in it for the right reasons and we do genuinely care, then that's contagious. And will we win everything? No, of course not. But in the event that there's a close call and it comes down to credibility determination, I'd bet that the person who truly cares is ultimately going to get pushed over the edge there in the right direction.
Yeah, that's the hope, man. I mean, I think like you say that at the same point, if it's not a competitive advantage, I don't want to go. Like I don't necessarily. If my job, right, and AI takes all of our jobs, I don't want to lose the human side of this. Like I did the defense side, I didn't get the human side, like that. And so coming to plaintiff's work, I was like, I found like that. I went to law school to help people, and I found a job that I get to do that in. I get to like have these like incredibly human moments that I just don't think exist on the defense side, and in doing some of that work like in civil defense. And so yeah, AI is great, I think, but like again, it's like the my hope is the advantage, and like if not, even if it's not the case, I'll continue to operate this way, that like let me do the human side of things that I can continue to do. That sometimes the mistake is going to be more powerful than if I was perfect and polished and prim. So that allows me to be the best for the people, right? For me to be a zealous advocate is being myself. So, and that's giving a damn.
It's being real, right? It's and I'll be quiet after this. I recognize I'm the one that's supposed to be interviewing you, right? But
we're unfortunately we're good enough friends that it's just more of a conversation.
No, this is good. This is good. Well, I mean, This is something I've shared a lot lately. Like I talk about how like criminal defense lawyers at the end of the day, when someone says, "How do you represent those people?" Right? I put in quotes, air quotes. At a minimum, they can say, "Well, I mean, everyone deserves a defense, and at the end of the day, I'm standing up for that old piece of paper called the Constitution." Right?
Yeah.
I think the corollary for us with the work that we do, and it took me a while, I think, to appreciate it, but I've come to truly believe it, is yes, do we represent the person, the victim, the person who's hurt at no fault of their own? We're trying to get them back on their feet or get them as close to whole as we can. But in doing so, I mean, we represent the values that I mean, the values of freedom, right? The freedom to choose to live one's own life the way they want without pain. I mean, what is the value of human life? What is the value of being able to go play with your kid? And when that's taken away from somebody. So in many respects, I think we get to walk into courtrooms and say, we're here to advocate on the value of human life. And I think that's really, really cool. And I think that, and I mean, I'm certainly biased when I say this, but when we take that approach, I mean, the whole like, what are the medical bills? What are the lost wages? And having so much focus on that, I think is so misguided. No, certainly, if it's helpful, if the economic damages are helpful to the client, we're going to use it. But I go into court, if I have those and I'm claiming those, I'll look at the jury and I'll say, we don't need you to tell us what the medical bills are. We have calculators, right? Like, we need you to tell us what the value of the important things, right? Like the person who can't walk the same way because this driver was texting on their phone and hit him, right? Or the value of this person who's lost a loved one and the value of that relationship, right? Like I don't care what the funeral expenses are, and nor should you. And so I think that this work has deep meaning. And if we are to pursue this work that way, then the human component needs to always be first and foremost.
Yeah, and I mean, you become a bean counter on the other end if you're engaging too much in that. Like, sure, I think there's when you reach policy limit and there's not anything else, like you can. This case that resolved recently, we like the numbers just weren't there, and I like was able to get some other information about like what they lost, their inability to get a job in the future, the loss of sleep. We were able to get to these policy limits. It wasn't a huge case, but at the same point, it's. Sometimes you have to be able to tell the story of the person and kind of demonstrate. Sometimes you're talking to an adjuster. And like even sometimes people will be like, oh, it's just a bump knee or whatever. It's like, no, it's a much bigger thing than I think you're realizing. And the only way you're going to know that though is asking, right? Like if you're not engaging with that client and you're not talking to them about, okay, I was trying to get people like get on your Apple Notes and start writing notes, tell me what's going on. But like I've had people who lost teeth and they talk about their smile will never be the same, right? Is that a $2,000 smile the never same? No, it means something more than just like this X. Like it means a lot more. And I think that like painting that picture, or even to the people before, if you resolve the case, only comes from knowing the person and trying to be there for them.
We're gonna have to get you out to the Jerry Spence stuff, man. I think you'd love it. I think you'd love it. Not to add another course on your plate, but or at a minimum, at least come to our thing in October.
If you can convince my wife when we go to TLU this year, that'll be the thing. It's a lot of weeks. I've heard great things, but
yeah, it's 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's way too long, but ultimately it's worth it. Well, let me end with this then. If you could go back to when you began your career as an attorney and give yourself some advice, knowing everything that you know now, what would you tell yourself?
I mean, I think to be more confident in myself for where I'm at. I think I had a lot of doubt. Like, I think you come in out of law school and you expect to be guns blazing, and you're sitting there. I was writing deposition reports. Didn't feel like I was being a lawyer. I think I could have been more patient. I think I could have. I mean, I'm glad I spent a lot of time. They paid for CLEs, so I took CLEs. I tried to learn. I tried to consume. I don't know. I feel like I started my firm at a good time, but at the same point, COVID was. I could have taken in more during that. So I think I would have taken advantage of more opportunities. Not that I miss out on all of them. I would have taken advantage of more of the opportunities in front of me. At the same point, a good lawyer, I think, has to be curious. And so you have to want to learn about your case, your client, the law, whatever that may be, so you can just ask more questions. And so I think that I wish that I would have maybe taken on a couple more opportunities. I would have maybe tried some different work. Even in law school, I wish I would have taken some different classes and so been open to some other experiences, because I'm not really going anywhere else, and so those always benefit you. But at the same point, man, I think that I don't know, I think some degree the journey I've been on has been one I wouldn't have expected, but it feels like a pretty damn straight line. It wasn't at times, but where I am now, I needed some of the failure of going to a law firm and it not working out. And I was a bad defense attorney, Sharif. I wasn't good. I didn't like it. I was bored. Like, there's so many parts about it that, like, I don't think I would have realized. And I remember I was in my interview for my first plaintiff's job, and like, why plaintiff's work? And I remember thinking, I was like, I never considered it. Not a time. It just had never come up. And so I was like, it must be something different. And luck. And so I think that at the same point I would have been more confident in myself, but I'm pretty damn thankful. But I still got plenty of distance to go to where I want to be, man. Like when you said to be 60 or 70, and I guess at that point have convinced yourself you figured it out. I don't think anybody figures it out, but at that point I hope to have convinced myself I figured it out.
Or you convince yourself that you'll never figure it out and just be okay with it, right? That's what I think the answer is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But, well, Damon, this has been a lot of fun, man. I hope to see you in person here again soon. You going to TLU, Huntington? Or?
That's the plan. I highly encourage you to bring the kids. I highly encourage it. My daughter had a blast. So.
Okay. Wow. My kids are wild, so I don't know if that's going to happen.
There were plenty of other kids there. There were people brought their kids. The beaches were right by. So
no, I know. I've been there. That's right. So, it's awesome. But I mean, my kids are an extra special wild. 2 young boys, man.
You have boys. I have a girl, so I don't have to say them. But yes.
Thank you again for joining the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Sharif.
Thanks for listening to Courtroom Stories and Tactics by RVA Trial Lawyers. Hosted by Sharif Gray and Niall Abuzaki. Please subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or any major podcast platform. Together, we're building a tribe of trial lawyers to remind the world what human life is truly worth, one verdict at a time.